So how did what you're doing now, this initiative, start? Did it start in the jail?
Yeah, this initiative started in the jail. Prior to COVID, we had a work release program at the jail. COVID kind of killed it. You didn't want to bring inmates that were going out to workplaces and coming back and bringing COVID back with them. After COVID ended, we didn't bring the program back. Had a lot of employers that were kind of looking for labor after COVID. Calling the jail, asking if they had the work release program. We're like, we don't have the work release program, but we can connect you with an inmate as they're getting released, and they could, potentially become an employee for you. And that's kind of where it started, just kind of a work-based sort of thing. But when you have a work release program in jail, I'm transporting them to their job, I'm feeding them, I'm clothing them, they have a place to stay. When they get released, those other needs aren't being met. And sure, there's a job, but there's so much more that goes with that, and that's what all this kind of built out of. Saying, we got to find housing for this person. Most of them don't have driver's licenses, so transportation's an issue. In St. Johns County, if you don't have a car, the Sunshine Bus isn't really, it's not that reliable. It doesn't go everywhere. So you're either stuck walking, biking, using an electric bike, something like that. So, trying to address all those needs for them to maintain employment. And sometimes you're not even ready for employment. You have a substance abuse issue, a mental health issue, or something like that. So also, finding services that would meet those needs. So that's kind of where it started.
Okay, I think that's interesting that employers were calling you to ask you if you had people who were in the work release program.
Right.
What's the advantage for an employer to hire someone? I mean, obviously, the advantage for the former inmate is there because it gives them a second chance, but what's the advantage for the employer?
Well, staffing is the biggest thing at that time, So when, like the commander was saying, after COVID, everybody was hiring. So the jobs were the easy part. We had employers coming to us looking for, like you said, when we had work release, and I said, well, here's what we're going to do. We're going to implement our reentry program. We opened up a building for a reentry center. We were able to have these employers come in, have job fairs where they'll come out, and we'll end up having 100 inmates that come through that job fair. And we've had a number of individuals getting hired on, and I'm talking about with county jobs, with city jobs. These are jobs that are something that they're going to hold on to. They've got a retirement, they've got benefits. These are things that we want them to be able to aspire to continue to be more, productive in our society. So, but we have to still address those like the substance abuse. I mean, probably 90% of the individuals in our jail have some sort of substance abuse issue or a mental health issue. And so we have to address those problems before they can maintain employment. And like the commander said, we also have to get transitional housing. So we work with sober living housing. We work with Operation New Hope for transitional housing. These are very important steps towards the goal of employment, because when we first started, the sheriff was coming to us, hey, get this guy a job. He was on a work squad. Well, the job is a very important portion, but there's a lot of other variables in there that we have to address to be able for them to maintain that. So
Yeah, the job was the easy part.
Yeah, the job was the easy part. So employers were coming to us left and right, and they still do. So when we have a job fair, we have to turn into organizations away because we just don't have enough room to be able to fulfill them.
So one of the things that we were talking about on the air earlier was the cost of having somebody incarcerated in St. Johns County. You had said that was about $150 a day?
It's pretty close to $150 a day.
So what does that include? Is that including health care and everything else that is required in the jail?
To house them all together.
Housing with the inmates, that's also, it's going to be your operational costs that are associated to that inmate. So you're talking about what it costs for security and all those other steps, what it costs for, medical, food, their transportation back and forth to, court or to medical appointments, things like that. So all those costs involved, maintenance of the building, all that's kind of rolled into one cost.
And if you look at that at 100, we were 100 inmates less than we were just a couple years ago, times 150 times 365 days. It's a lot of money. And so if you're looking at it from a money perspective, then that's, and we're looking at, but we look at it a lot more than that. We look at it, we're saving our community from having victims in our community. And when someone says victimless crime, I don't like that. I don't believe in victimless crime statement. I think the individual can be their own victim when they're committing crime. They've got kids. They're not home with their kids. They're at home with their family. They're sitting in the jail. And although that may be a good thing because then they come to reentry and take advantage of our services, but at the same time they are sitting in jail, wasting their life, not being home with their family. So they're their own victim, and their kids are their victims, and so forth. So we try to implement these things so we can actually correct our community, in a lot of ways.
Yeah, and I think one of the amazing things, we'll have our Operation New Hope class that's done, and we do a graduation for that class every other Friday, and you'll have inmates get up in front of the class and say, this is the best thing that's ever happened to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And they're in jail in a class, and that was their statement, and it's like, and they're emotional, they're crying, they're, I mean,
You got grown
it's
men out there
powerful.
crying that would never do it in the block, but they're in that graduation. We put them in caps and gowns. We make a big deal about it because this is a big deal for them. A lot of them haven't graduated from anything, high school, nothing. So when we do our GEDs, we put them in caps and gowns. We take pictures. We send it to their family. What's important to remember, though, is these things that we do inside the jail means nothing if we don't have follow-ups after they get out of the jail. So when they go through that graduation, every one of those inmates, once they get out, they have my cell phone number. They can call me anytime. I get calls 9, 10 o'clock at night sometimes, on the weekends. But that's important because they want reassurance sometimes, that they're doing well. And if you don't have that kind of reassurance and that follow-up, it's not going to be successful. Every jail, every community, they may have these different reentry programs, but if you don't have the team effort behind it and the follow-ups that you have to do, I'm a firm believer in giving my phone number, and I do that with not only inmates that are inside the jail, but also from the ones that I meet that are in homeless camps. They all have my phone number. I give them my card. So they may not be ready that day, but they'll be ready eventually, and they'll give me a call.
So this is really community policing at its finest.
I would call it that, yes, sir.
Which is kind of odd because we're corrections officers.
Yeah,
Right.
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 But
So a lot of people think that because St. Johns County is one of the fastest growing counties and we've got so much development here, they don't see the homeless.
Right.
Is homelessness really a big problem, and people leaving jail, not having a place to go, really a big issue?
A couple years ago, it was worse than it is now, and that's because a couple years ago we started addressing it from our perspective, from the sheriff's office perspective, and of course we can't do it alone. So we reach out to our resource partners, our business partners, the community partners, everybody that can. They've all had my phone number as well. So when they come across somebody that needs help, whether it be reunification, transitional housing, substance abuse, we work with Epic here locally, a recovery center that we can get somebody in. I've got them from the homeless camp say, I want to go back to my mom, but I have a substance abuse issue. I said, let me get you in a residential for 30 days, and then I'll get you back home to your mom. And that's what we've done. We'll make a call to Epic, our partners there, and say, hey, I've got someone, he's on the streets. Can we get him in? Do you have a bed available? We'll get him in that residential, do the detox for 7 days and 30-day residential, and then we make contact with them and say, okay, let's get you back to your mom now that you're clean. So, and that's a very important portion to address before we even send him back, because we're not trying to send him back to be a problem for his mom. We want him to be successful no matter where he goes or she goes.
So you have the people on one side who say that homelessness is not a problem, and then you have the people on the other side who say, I see 5, 6, 7 homeless people every single day on my way to work or sitting in a park. What do you do about those people?
As far as the people that say there are no problems?
No, about the people who are, for example, in the park. Do you actively go
yes,
to
ma'am.
a park and
Yep,
find people?
absolutely. If I go up to them, and obviously, as you can see, a lot of times I dress down. I don't go full tactical because I want to have a presence of, hey, I'm not here with a warrant. I'm here to help you. And we want to be here to help you get to better yourself, whether it be housing, or I've gotten people that off the streets here in St. Johns County that got them into Operation New Hope, which is a workforce program. So these are things that if they're able to work, then let's get you to work, make some money. But yeah, we address them if they're in a park. But typically, a lot of times, if they're in the park, it's usually because they've been in that park for days and so forth. So, and that's when they get noticed usually. But yeah, we walked down St. George Street. They had an issue there quite a bit a few years ago, and you'd have every 5 feet, you'd have a homeless person begging, sitting on the sidewalk, whatever. And we addressed that a couple years ago, and we went through there, and we've done about 470 reunifications altogether in the last 3 or 4 years, and that's getting people back to their family. And I get a lot of follow-up. I don't always have someone's phone number if they don't have a phone, but a lot of times they'll get their call from their family. They've sent me text messages saying how grateful they were to get they'd be on the streets here in St. Johns County for 2, 3, 4 years, be doing the thing they do as a homeless individual. And we get them back to their family. They're taking pictures of themselves in an above-ground pool. Now they've got a car. They've been successful because they got back to that support system. They're off the streets, and I get it all the time. You know, I've had individuals that come up to me, and there's a guy that was actually from the jail. He wasn't homeless, but he's an ex-veteran. We got him a job. He ended up losing it because he had a knee injury from the military. And you know, after we worked to get him another job and a third job because one was laying off through this last few years, he called me. He texted me on, and I hadn't talked to him for a year and a half. He texted me on a Father's Day and said, "Happy Father's Day, Sergeant Clark. I'm here with my kids because of you." Those things, that was heart-moving for me, and I said those things are what drives me to continue to do what we do, you know. So, and me and Commander Melton, we kind of implemented this program initially about 3 years ago, and this is something we love, you know, and we do our best to continue pushing these agendas because they work, they're effective.
Commander, you had mentioned before the GED program. Are there a lot? Is the percentage of those incarcerated who don't have a GED high?
It's fairly high. Yeah, it's I would say you're probably looking at least half. Yeah. I would say.
Really?
We do take numbers, but the problem with the jail is that I don't know when. It's not like in prison. I know when every single person's getting out. In jail, you don't know when people are getting out. So a lot of them are kind of reluctant to start a GED program because, you know, some inmates are the most optimistic people in the world. They'll look at them and say, "Hey, I have a court date in a month. I'm getting out of jail." They may not get out of jail. Instead of starting the program right when they get in and trying to finish it, they'll keep holding out for the hope that they're going to get out on that next court date because they may get probation or something like that. Mm-hmm. So it kind of prolongs the process instead of just starting it and getting it out, you know, getting it over with. And so some of them will wait till they go to prison because, you know, you go to prison, hey, you're getting out in 3 years. This is your exact date you're getting out. Only about 25% of our inmates in the jail are sentenced where we know a definite date they're getting out of the jail. So that does make it challenging. It makes it challenging to deal with these programs in general because in prison, I can make a release plan for a person. I know exactly when they're getting out. I can work with my sentence inmates in the jail knowing when they get out, but a lot of inmates are just going to get out when they go to court that day and they're say time served, you know, you're getting probation, you're gone that day. I mean, finding that person a job or, you know, hey, I want to go back to my family today. You know, it's last minute, you're making arrangements. It certainly is a challenge.
Two quick questions. One, age range that we're talking about. All adults?
Yes.
Okay. Is there a separate program for youth?
We really don't. I mean, we have a few juveniles in the jail, but we really don't have a whole lot. So we really have not worked with them that much. I think right now we have 2 or 3 in the jail. So
those are required for high school.
Yeah.
They have.
But yeah, they will do high school. They'll do high school. Once they're 16, their parents could opt them out to do the GED program, but that takes their parents signing off on, you know, with the school system to do that. So some of them do just do that plan, saying, hey, that's you know, they view that as an easier route than going to school and going to high school every day. So,
Michael, you had talked about the story of the gentleman who called you on Father's Day. Do you have another favorite story, or is that it?
Oh, I've got plenty. We've had it where we've got him from the jail, but also from the streets. But I've got one that he came into St. Johns County with a significant other. They break up. He becomes homeless for about 3 years on the streets here in St. Johns County. He wound up, and this is before we started outreach, so he wound up in our jail. And so I went and talked with him in this block. And I asked him, I said, hey, you know, do you have any family or friends, or, you know, how'd you get here? He told me the whole story. He said, no, I don't, my family, I don't have any friends. My family's all dead. And I said, okay, well, you're about 35, 36 years old. You've had to work somewhere, right? He's like, well, I used to work at a body shop south of Los Angeles. And he told me the body shop. I said, you leave on good terms? He says, I think so. So I Googled that body shop. I called the owner of the body shop, and I said, hey, I've got so-and-so here, and he's like, well, I wonder what happened to him. He was a great worker. I said, well, he's all the way across the country in St. Johns County Jail. I said, if I were able to get him back out there to him, would you be able to help him? He said, absolutely. In fact, I've got an apartment above the body shop. He can come live in the body shop and work for me. So, you know, he did have an alcohol issue, so we were kind of concerned he might not make it all the way, but we gave him clothing, we gave him food and everything, because it was about a 4.5-day trip on the Greyhound bus. And sure enough, I contacted a follow-up about 2 weeks later. He was there working, doing fantastic, and he was on our streets for almost 3 years. And it's like, why? When we have solutions, there's a solution to every problem. If an individual's willing to let me help them, there's always a solution to something. So, and it's just that little extra legwork, just Googling that body shop and making a call and asking, and that's all it took. So so he's doing, and of course we don't follow up years down the road, but just to follow up to make sure he made it, make sure he's doing well, and sure enough he was. So that's great. That's great news to us.
Commander,
We love
do you
that.
have a favorite story?
I do like that one. The other one I do like is we had the guy that he was actually in outreach, I believe. The guy that he was at St. Francis House, and he wanted to get a hold of his brother that lived in Montana.
Oh yeah.
And
He was the first outreach, actually.
Yeah, so he was the first
was our
outreach,
first
really.
one, yeah.
But eventually, able to get a hold of his family in Montana. His brother's like, okay, he lived. Says it took 2 or 3 days, and in the process, he was sitting right next to another guy who ended up becoming a reunification too. But that wasn't as cool of a story. But after talking to his brother got him a job at a ski lodge in Montana, Big Sky Mountain.
Big Sky Mountain.
And it had lodging, and it was $19 an hour, like a
Yeah.
free place to stay, lodging, doing maintenance at a ski lodge in Montana.
We couldn't do that here in St.
I was
Johns
going to say,
County.
can we get that job?
Right.
Yeah, that just doesn't exist here. So that's why reunification is important, because you're reuniting with jobs and people like and his brother and stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, he said. In fact, he was so excited. He was sending me selfies all the way from. They stopped in Chicago and he's taking a picture all the way. And then he gave me a picture of him with a big mountain behind him in Montana. So he was excited. And I told him, hey, well, maybe we'll come there for a vacation up that big ski lodge. So yeah.
Thank you guys. Was there anything else you want to talk about that we didn't include?
Do you want to talk about the driver's license?
Oh yeah. So what's one of our gold standards for us is, we started the reentry center before we actually were doing all this stuff. He worked up front, I worked out of my car, but we ended up opening up the reentry center in the back. So we were able to make a relationship with the St. Johns County tax collector, Dennis Hollingworth at that time, and Jennifer Raven was a big proponent of it. And we went to them and we made up some cups and build that rapport, and we told them what we kind of wanted to do. It was like we could only get certain individuals across the street to get IDs, and an ID is extremely important for a job, for housing, everything else. So we were able to open up a DMV room inside the reentry center it was their equipment directly connected to the DMV. So now we get everybody from the main unit of the detention center out there. We went from doing 7 or 9 the first year to 200 when we opened up the DMV that next year. And that is 200 more people that we can actually help get into transitional housing. Then we realized a lot of people needed second forms of ID. So we actually are partnering with the the health department here in St. Johns County. So now we actually have a health department kiosk that can get them birth certificates as well. So now we have 2 forms of ID that we can help every individual that's willing to be helped.
That's great.
Yeah, so.
And also keeps all those people out of the other lines.
Oh, absolutely.
Right, and it made them, when you bring someone over across the street and they're in the orange and it says, whatever, it makes people uncomfortable. So this makes it just a lot easier on everything in our community. So us being able to, not everybody, we were lucky to be logistically stationed across the street from the DMV. So, and we already had fiber optics because it's got to be secured lines with the state. So we were lucky in that sense. Not everybody has that opportunity, but that was something we looked at. And of course, also transportation. Transportation is a big issue. Probably 99% have suspended driver's license due to their crimes. We work with a e-bike company that we're able to, they'll come into our job fairs and our resource fair, and people can apply to get e-bikes right there on site so that when they get out, that e-bike's delivered to them at the jail and get them to where they can get to from their home to their job, whatever that may be. So,
That's great.
yeah.
That's
So.
great. Guys, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks.